and we see everything. We are members of the world's favourite online sports betting company, and we gamble responsibly at Bet365.
If you're a sports fan of any sports dominion, most likely you've seen a betting or gambling advert. All betting ads usually have one thing in common, which is the disclaimer at the end. Depending on the geography you're in, it's usually betting is not acceptable for people under the age of 18 or 25 or something along the lines of gambling can be addictive and seek assistance or professional help. The bigger question is, do the betting companies really mean that, or they're just cash cows? Is it just for formality or by default that they have to put the disclaimer? Well, most likely we'll never know. Unless you've been living under a rock, the last couple of days, the Brentford footballer Ivan Toney has been suspended from all football activity for 8 months. That is due to breaching FA betting rules. He actually pled guilty to 232 breaches of the FA betting rules and is now going to miss football until 17th January 2024. Today we'll examine the ins and outs of the Ivan Toney situation. Welcome to the channel. If you do love the content, do remember to leave a like or a comment, share this content with some of your friends. Let's get the ball rolling, or let's place our bets like Ivan Toney would. Before I go any further, let's make one thing clear. The FA hasn't clarified what the breaches were that Ivan Toney committed, so we cannot draw any conclusions this soon, and we'll wholeheartedly mean this disclaimer, unlike the gambling and betting companies. Now, 232 breaches are very many. Definitely, it looks like the 8 months suspension could be warranted. I believe that if he did have inside information on the different games he was betting on, 8 months will be a worthy time. But if he was just placing bets on any other game he was randomly watching, perhaps it could be over punishment. I would like to first point out one thing. That is the hypocrisy that is surrounding football. I'd like to point out one thing, which is the glaring hypocrisy with this whole thing. Football and gambling go hand in hand. 8 clubs in the Premier League have sponsors that are actually a betting site or a betting company. Well, let's not even go very far. Ivan Toney's team, Brentford, the shirt sponsors are Hollywood Bets. The irony that a player in that club would actually bet with their sponsor being Hollywood Bets looks like the apple didn't fall far from the tree. Not sure if I used that reference in the right context, but well, you do understand. 40% of the sponsorships in the Premier League are directly linked to a gambling company. Well, we do have a pie chart here illustrating the sponsorship deals in the Premier League. And as you can see, the lion's share, 40%, goes to the betting companies. So how in the hell are you supposed to wedge down the law on a player for betting when 8 out of 20 teams in the Premier League have a betting company on their shirt or in any other way? It does look like the Premier League should actually get their house in order before waging the law on any other player. Well, talking about that, the Premier League did put out a statement a couple of months ago how all the 20 teams in the Premier League had come to a conclusion that there should be no gambling or betting companies sponsoring their front shirts starting 2026-2027. Perhaps that's a step in the right direction. But then one would wonder, who will take on from the betting companies? Well, most likely it will be a booze company or a fast food company or crypto or APR finance companies. Not like they are any better than the gambling companies. Well, the devil has very many faces, and well, let's see what Ivan Toney thinks about crypto.
I don't know, the one that makes a lot of money. The one that makes a lot of money.
Yeah, what's that?
You tell me.
Ethereum.
Ethereum's the best one.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Nice.
What you do?
Professional footballer.
You're a footballer?
Yeah.
What's your name?
Ivan Toney.
Where you play?
No excited.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
Other question that should actually be asked is whether Ivan Toney should have been suspended or he should have actually been helped. Again, like we said earlier, if he did not have any inside information as per the games he was staking his money on, he's purely a gambling addict. He had 262 breaches of the FA betting rules thrown at him. He did admit that was to 232 of them. Now, the bigger question should be if he's a gambling addict or if he had inside information. Now, if he didn't have inside information and he was just betting on random games he saw on the telly, then he should actually be helped rather than be punished. Because let's be honest, footballers have all the money they want in the world and they could do whatever they choose. Nah, I'm lying. Actually, they can't do that because the rules are clear in black and white. We've seen multiple players get suspended for breaching the FA's betting rules. Joey Barton, one of the most infamous Premier League characters, was banned for 18 months. That is for 1,260 bets he placed between 2006 and 2013. However, when it comes to having inside information, that is where I do believe the law should actually be wedged. Kieran Trippier, currently at Newcastle, before he left Tottenham Hotspur to join Atletico Madrid, he did let a few of his mates know that he was joining Atleti, and with that inside information, they were able to bet on Kieran Trippier's next transfer, and that's how he served a 10-week ban. Daniel Sturridge would suffer the same fate while he was leaving Liverpool to join the Turkish outfit Trabzonspor. It's pretty different in this case because they did have inside information which they let slip as a person in a footballing place with privilege. The punishment there would be understandable, but if Ivan Toney was just betting on random games, then I do believe he should be helped rather than punished because he's basically and purely a gambling addict. We've seen very many gambling addicts in the world of football. You don't have to go very, very far. The most technically apt English player I have seen play the game, Paul Gaza Gascoigne, admitted to having been a gambling addict, and he did go as far as explaining that when he was at Lazio in Italy, when the Serie A was the best league in the world, he always got that dopamine hit for playing in front of 60,000 fans. Whenever he went back home, he never got that dopamine rush. And how best could he alleviate that? By simply betting and gambling. Gambling addicts are no different from any other addicts, so they ought to be helped, and I believe the Premier League lost a step right there and could have used it in a positive light. Let's talk about the suspension itself. 8 months. Well, for starters, I do believe Tony is a lucky boy that the suspension starts towards the end of the season. So pretty much of the 8 months, 3 will be in the summer, so he will serve 5 months and he can return to training with his mates or teammates, that is on 17th September. However, it perhaps could be a very big hindrance in his career because at the point that he's in, he scored 20 goals for Brentford in this season. He had 17 last season. He's been Brentford's top scorer for the last 3 seasons, and a lot of clubs on the transfer market are in need of a striker. Chelsea, Manchester United, Bayern Munich, Tottenham Hotspur, should they lose Harry Kane, will also be in the market for a striker. Well, this might be a very big leap, but Real Madrid might look for a Karim Benzema replacement. I am not alluding to the fact that Tony could be a replacement for Benzema, but you do catch my drift. Let's look at some of the longest bans or suspensions in English football. Eric Cantona in 1995, while was playing for Manchester United, he kung fu kicked a Crystal Palace fan and he got 9 months. Rio Ferdinand got 8 months for missing a drug test. Are we saying that the severity of the charges for Ivan Toney are as severe as what Cantona and Rio Ferdinand did? But again, like I said, you have to take this with a grain of salt because we do not know what exact breaches Ivan Toney did have. But again, like has been my theme throughout this video, if he did have inside information, he deserves even more than 8 months. But if he didn't have inside information and was just staking on any game he saw, then I do believe he needed assistance rather than punishment. In conclusion, we have to look at both sides of the coin. Of course, we all prefer head. But the glaring hypocrisy has to be one of the issues that are sorted. Football is generally surrounded by betting and gambling adverts and companies and sponsorships. We can't go past that. Until the Premier League clean house, it can only be contradictory of them to lay down the law like this. But also, as much as the Premier League are trying to eliminate and eradicate the gambling and sponsorships, but as much as the Premier League will try to eradicate the gambling sponsorships, it's not all altruistic from the Premier League. Also, it should be noted that the teams that gain the most from the betting sponsorships are the smaller teams. Southampton, Everton, Stoke City once upon a time, West Ham have all gained from betting companies as their sponsors. It's very hard for the bigger teams to actually have a betting sponsor. So if you do take away the gambling sponsors, you're actually adhering to the Matthew principle, making the rich richer and making the less fortunate less fortunate. But also, the rules should be spelled out very clearly and all professionals should adhere to them. So it's a case of pick your poison, Halle Berry or hallelujah, money trees. There's only one person that could have saved Ivan Toney from this whole saga, the Manchester City lawyers. If you did love the video, leave a like, comment, and do remember to subscribe. Until next time, take care. Like a Drake album.